It's so hard trying to do this without a screen. Basically, what happened is I was trying to get the pixels to line up, and to do that, I tried to full screen my OBS, and then OBS can't recognize any of the windows that I'm capturing. Outrageous. Like all the screen captures disappear. It only thinks that there's OBS once it's full screen. So I can't use that to work on anything. Ay. Okay. Let's just make that a little bit bigger. Okay, and I want to cancel. I want to group them so they stop moving. Okay. All right, let's check. Get YouTube chat open as well. All right, let's check. Hey, welcome. So, yes, what you do normally is watch and listen. That's up to you. If you've got some other way you want to do this, you go for that. The competition is located in Dubai, and round 3 is today in an hour and 15 minutes. I'm popping on early to let folks from the channel know that we're going to be doing coverage on that, so you can plan for it, and also to go over the best game from yesterday's round 2 in advance as a kind of tantalizing enticement towards watching this tournament. I'm also going to present some information about the tournament, like what Iris is asking about, where it's held, we'll look up some information like the prize fund, the number of rounds, the time control, that kind of stuff. So we've got the basics set, and you know what we're in for. And participants, of course. Something that's very exciting about this tournament is the participants list. So this is an open tournament, and there's been some talk in the chess community lately about the open tournaments versus the closed tournaments. And no. Sorry. Okay, so there's been a lot of talk recently about the opens versus the closed tournaments, right? And it is my theory and contention that a lot of people will find these open tournaments to be more interesting with a greater variety of players, more games to pick between, so that if some game is looking equal and boring, you can look at some other game that's looking exciting, or it depends on your chess taste. If you're somebody who likes a boring, like what other people think is boring is obviously not boring to you, otherwise you wouldn't like it. But if you're somebody who likes a calm position, you can find a calm position. If you like a London system, you can find a London. If you want a Nimzo, you can find a Nimzo. There's just so much chess content, and the level of the players is great. Even if you don't have the top 5 players in the world or the top 10 players in the world, usually at these opens, you'll still have a really, really good level. So let me go here for a second, folks, and grab you some of the other top games for today. So one of the top board pairings is, let me see if the screen share is still working. Yep. Is Vladimir Fedoseev against Saleh Salem, who is the highest rated player from the Middle East, where this tournament is taking place. And it says here his rating's 2629. I think I saw him at 2695 last year. I wonder if he's crossed 2700 or not. He was right on the border. So let me just quickly check that for all of you. I don't have a quick way to check it right now, actually. Okay. Anyway, I think he either crossed it or was like 5 points away from crossing it. Super strong player. And he's started off this tournament well with 2 wins. Then we're going to grab this board here, which I think might be the game we focus on today. And I'm going to open up the other board between the top leaders. So I've got that ready for later as well. And I'm going to try and find Sam's board because he's my buddy and that's what I'm interested in, you know? So let's see, Sarana. You can see the level of some of the players we've got here, right? I mean, look, you've got 2684, 2706, 2665, 2671. There's an incredibly high level at this tournament. Yeah, Chittambaram Aravind Chittambaram is very strong. He has been on quite an upward trajectory this past year. He's up to 2670-ish. And, you know, that always starts to ask the question about, is this guy going to make 2700 or not? And, you know, he's like a couple years older than the teenagers where it seems like nothing can stop them. So we don't know for sure that he will make it or not to that Super GM level, but certainly he's been showing a lot of improvement. He's got a very strong personality for chess. Very solid mental state, good worker. So we might see his game today as well. It's possible, but I was thinking that we might be watching Theodoru's game today because he played such a fantastic game yesterday. So let me see if I can go to round 2 and find that for you. There it is, right up there on the top board. Okay. So this was, well, I don't know if it was the greatest game from round 2 because I haven't seen all the games from round 2. There are so many games played, you know, that it takes hours to go through them. I've played through about 25 games from rounds 1 and round 2. When can you say that you have a good rate, like rating, Mo Yasser? When can you say that your rating is good, like that you've reached a good level in chess? Whenever you want to. Whether or not somebody's good at chess is all relative, right? It's all relative. So most chess players always think, I'm not that good, I could be a bit better. All the way up to players like Magnus Carlsen and Garry Kasparov. They were always critical of their play and saw how they could improve more and worked hard at chess trying to get better than they were and thought that they were pretty bad. You can look at Carlsen's comments from just yesterday to illustrate my point, where he played a really close rapid match with 2 very close rapid matches with Firouzja Alireza and came out just behind in both matches and lost them. And then he said, you know, he just played horribly, you know, and obviously he played better than almost anyone else in the world would have yesterday other than Alireza on that particular day. He was throwing his water bottle. He was so frustrated. He truly thought that he played terribly. Whereas if any of us had played as well as he played yesterday, we would have said that we were great. So, long answer, Mo Yasser, but I got to keep moving. It's up to you when you decide that you are now good. Eli's got a great question. Are there tournaments where Erigaisi doesn't participate? What does Arjun Erigaisi like to do, folks? Do you know the chess world well enough to answer this question? It's very simple, honestly. Does anybody know, what does Arjun Erigaisi like to do? I'm not sure if he's like 19 or 20 right now, but he has broken into the top 10 in the world. One of the top talents of the new generation, a contender for world champion in 2 years from now. Yeah. Merles and Swap have the correct answer here. And I think Amidov is answering my question about, from before, about, about Salem Saleh, that his peak rating published was 2690. So he came very, very close. And I think in the live, mid-tournament ratings, I saw him as high as 2695. So he didn't quite make it to 2700, but super strong. And yeah, Fetty, you can definitely ask questions. Of course, participate. I will try to answer them. It looks like my YouTube chat was mildly scrolled down, so I missed. So there was a delay there. But yes, I'll happily answer your questions. So Merle says, Arjun like playing chess. And Swap for Prez says, likes to move wooden pieces and hit clocks. Exactly. The dude is insatiable for playing chess. And I even once had the opportunity to ask him about it, and he confirmed that it was that simple. Basically, he's trying to maximize what percentage of his life he spends playing chess. If you want to know what Arjun's going to do, just look, where are there chess tournaments with the highest level, with the most rounds? Is there a possibility to play a blitz tournament in between rounds? Or, is there a city with 2 tournaments going on at the same time? Or, horror of horrors to me, is there a place where you can play 2 or 3 games a day instead of 1? And that's where you're going to find Arjun, and that's what he's going to be doing. Okay? So that is Arjun Erigaisi. The guy is just playing all the time. It's what he wants to do. He has broken into the top 10 and been as high as number 5 or 6 in the world in the last week, until he lost this game to Theodoru yesterday. And he was kind of debunking this idea that you can't gain rating points in opens, that if you play against lower rated players, they're going to drag you down with draws, because Arjun Erigaisi was not getting enough invitations to top events. And honestly, there aren't even enough top events to keep Arjun satisfied, right? If he were invited to every single closed tournament there is in the world, he would still have to play opens to satisfy his appetite. So he's playing all these opens, and his rating kept going up. Now, maybe people are drawing him down a little bit with their draws, and he's going up anyway because he's just so much above his rating, and his rating is just more slowly climbing towards where it should be. Also, he's just one example in one case, which doesn't, open and shut the question of whether or not you can gain rating points in opens. But Arjun Erigaisi is the top seed at this tournament, and it definitely makes open tournaments more exciting to have some of the top players in the world playing. So, there you have it. Erigaisi playing this tournament, and finally he lost a game. We haven't seen dude lose a game in a while. He tied for first in a closed tournament earlier this month with Abdusadarov in Sweden with 2 wins and 5 draws in a 7-round tournament. Wasn't an amazing result for either of them, even though they tied for first. They only gained 1 rating and 0.7 of a rating respectively, I think. So they were expected to score at least +2, and I was expecting them to maybe score +3, because I think that Erigaisi and Abdusadarov are really, really, really good, like above their current ratings. But anyway, check out this game that he played yesterday. It's a very exciting game, and Theodoru plays it very much like a Carlsen-Firouzja game, which I think is one of the top games of all time. You guys can look for that. It's in the same opening. This is the very, very, very popular Super GM drawing weapon deployed here by Arjun Erigaisi, the semi-Tarrasch. Yeah, you can check out the Carlsen-Firouzja game as well if you don't know it. I highly recommend it. Carlsen-Firouzja semi-Tarrasch. Theodoru is going to use the same double pawn sack in this game, the same theme that Carlsen uses in the game with Firouzja, although I think Carlsen sacrificed a 3rd pawn as well that game, and Theodoru didn't need to. Okay, so here's a critical variation for it. Bishop c4, knight d7. Fedi Goya has a little question for us. I am currently at 1638, goal of gaining 70 points a year. To get there, I've been playing all the games of great players in reverse. What do you think? Any thoughts? In reverse, do you mean starting from Carlsen and moving back in history towards Morphy, or starting with Morphy and moving forward in history towards Carlsen? I definitely believe it is a useful thing to do to study great games. It's not the only thing you can do. But studying the great games of history is a great way to improve, and I generally do it in the direction of from history towards now, so you can see the development, you can see how one idea answers a previous idea and how people are learning from the games that came before them. I think that's a great way to learn, but the one way to learn Fedigoya is to play games and then analyze your own games. There's a bunch of other things, and the number one and the best training program that I know of that will allow you to improve is the Dojo training program. So check out our training program if you like. It's something like, let's see. Let's go to training plan. I don't know if this is going to be exactly the right link, but try our website if you're looking for a real training program and plan that will include everything you should do to keep consistently improving. All right, castles, and there is a free version of it. You can try the free version if you don't know us well enough to believe in us. I think it's your first day here, and welcome. I'm not trying to push anything on you, but you seem serious, and that's the best thing I know. All right, so here we go. Rook A d1. This bishop c4, knight d7 is one of the most critical lines for this variegation. I don't know a lot of theory, but White's got these two pawns, and there's two major choices of how you deploy them. One is you play e5, gaining space on the king side, and you go for an attack on the king. The other is you play d5, and you get a passed d5 pawn, and you try and push it to d6, d7. As it expands, the opponent's pieces become more and more limited and get tied down to trying to prevent it from queening. Sometimes it's good in the endgame, sometimes the middle game, it depends. Black tickles the e4 pawn, and white moves the queen. This is an easy move to play for white because it's everything you want to do. It moves the queen towards the king side. It defends the e pawn. She's in great position there on the dark squares. With light squared bishops on the board, you want your queen to control the dark squares if possible. All right. This bishop gets poked, and the queen trade is offered. Hell no. Hell no. The endgame is perfectly good for black at this point. White's made no progress in the center, and trades tend to devalue the center and increase the value of the queenside pawn majority, which is counterplay. And although this opening is great for drawing as black, it's also great for winning. The holy grail of chess openings against weaker players. You know, it's hard to win with black against grandmasters who are over 2,700. It just happens very rarely that you win as black against them. But, it has this imbalance that gives you the ability to push and try and beat your opponent in a lot of endgames. So white, of course, no way. Prepares the move knight to g5 and e5 with just direct threats against h7. h6 keeps the knight at bay, and it's good shape. It's hard to play a move like g4, g5, although you want to, because your opponent likely takes your center pawn out. So simpler move h3, and this gets rid of back rank mates if you need to lift all your rooks for your checkmating attack. If you go rook d3 and rook e3 to bring them this way, it also stops rook h3. But now that black's played h6, you would think your target's more likely to be g7 than h7, right? So a rook on g3 would be great. h3, rook d8. There's a rook lift for you. And here comes the counterplay. Here comes the counterplay. Oh, sorry, I didn't even make my announcement. The main goal here was to make the announcement. The announcement is I'm going to cover Sharjah Masters today, tomorrow, and Monday and Tuesday next week. Okay? I won't be able to do it on the weekend because it's the middle of the day for me and, kids and events and all that. But I am going to cover it today and tomorrow. That's round 3 and 4. I will miss 5, 6 on the weekend, and then I will cover 7, 8 on Monday and Tuesday. I happen to be in France where kids don't have school on Wednesday, so I won't be able to cover the last round probably. I'll be with my kids that day. But I'm going to cover 4 rounds of this tournament live for you, starting with round 3 in 1 hour. Okay. And in a moment, I'm going to run out and get lunch, and then I'm going to run back and do the live commentary for round 3. So it starts in an hour, and then they have like a 15 to 30 minute delay on the moves being broadcast. So we'll figure it out. Today will be our first day doing it together. We'll figure out how it works. All right, so here comes the big move. Black is preparing a5, and then the pawns are getting active, and there's the idea of a4 trapping this bishop, and just suddenly counterplay starts to come up, and more and more and more counterplay. So Theodorou decides this is the best his position can get. He doesn't have time to lift this or move the knight out of the way to go rook g3, because when you move the knight, your d-pawn's going to be undefended or poorly defended, right? Vulnerable. So he decides it's time to go for it, and he hits him with the sack. And the sack goes like this. d5, pawn takes, e5. You push past. You don't take the pawn. If you take the pawn, the whole center's open. An open center is not conducive to attacking on the king side, okay? So here, black just takes. Stuff just starts trading, right? Rook's on open files, bishops on open diagonals. There's no attack. There's no attack. You're just lost. So d5 takes, push past. Beautiful. This is a sealer sweeper pawn sacrifice. It's one of the more beautiful ideas that there are in chess. It exists in other pawn structures and other openings, such as the Benoni is famous for having a sealer sweeper. In the Benoni, you sack the e pawn, and after they take it, then you play f5. This pawn is supposed to seal your opponent's pieces, block them in, right? And at the same time, we got rid of these, we moved these pawns out of the way, so now our knight should be good on d4 and our bishop on c2. Ooh la la. Now that's cooking with oil or gas or whatever, something really flamey, right? Because white is trying to make all black's pieces dead because of this pawn, and at the same time wake up all of white's pieces. Oh, it's so vicious and evil. Now, often you'll see people as black try to move d4 back so these pieces get space, you know, and there'll be complicated variations often to calculate with that possible counter sack. In this game, Arjun just jammed the knight into the middle of the board and said, okay, this piece is good at least, even if this one got bad. And one thing this does is if you play the normal, you know, knight d4 looking at f5, right? Black's gonna have queen e5 here, just taking out your center pawn, and most importantly, now your queen's covering the king side. It's very hard to now win on the king side because black has decent defensive forces available. Otherwise, you know, it's a great plan. You go knight f5, you know, maybe like f3, maybe rook g3, that kind of stuff. You go after these squares. It's beautiful. But here he doesn't have time to play the whole more solid version of the pawn sack, and he plays the aggressive version of the pawn sack. Ooh la la, the double pawn sack, as shown by Magnus Carlsen against Firouzja. The pawn gets in there and starts to weaken the black king's position. Black takes it, knight d4. Now the idea is the knight wants to get into e6, attack the queen and rook, and win material. Not only that, the bishop is secretly lined up against the pawn and the king. So there can be ideas where you go rook takes e4, pawn takes e4, and you take on e6, or the bishop helps the knight go there. So there's like not so much you can do about this. For example, if you defended the square with your queen, white can take anyway. Boom and boom. And you'll see the pawn can't really capture. I mean, you lose the whole queen. So, you know, your queen has to go away somewhere. White's rook comes in. This one's ready to come here. This pawn's under pressure. So white gets a nice attack going. And, you know, there's other variations. We could also calculate whether this thing works. Black would, you know, probably counter sack here, and we could, yeah, otherwise they're losing everything on d8. So they would counter sack, and we could evaluate if this is better or worse than the other option. Technically, black's got 2 rooks against the queen, but the knight's amazing and black's discoordinated. White's threatening things like queen g4, queen e7. So that might be good for white as well. So you see a constellation of tactics on these squares that come up. So in the game, Arjun retreats the knight from e4 to get out of the way of rook takes e4 and provides some defense here. It forces a trade, right? Because white's going to take on e6 at some point anyway, but at least they're going to trade pieces. This is probably a mistake from Erigaisi, by the way. I'm not going to get into details because it's lunchtime, but surely he shouldn't be moving his a-pawn here when he's about to get thrashed. The basic idea from white is going to take on e6, trade knights, bring in the rooks, and try and go rook e7. And you'll see that's exactly what happens next. Now, black can't play rook e8 because the square's not covered enough. I think black tried rook d7, but then white's going to have access to e8 if they want it. And even against rook d7, you could play rook e7 as white. You could still play it even, right? So this move here was just too costly time-wise. plays here. I mean, you can calculate, you know, do I have time to throw in something like this, you know, or do I get killed over here? And the answer is you probably do get killed over there. Also, this is hanging with the move I played. Sorry, let me give you a more realistic move there, maybe. And then, yeah, we'll just come here. Queen tries to defend it. Here, here, triple up against this. You know, and it's a matter of time for the black king to be dead. Something like that, right? So, okay, those lines can be calculated. I'm sure they calculate a ton of lines. I don't have time to show you those because this is just a taste. We'll be back soon with more. So, 96, 96, rook e6 happened. Rook d7 to keep the rook maybe out of e7. Queen g4, aiming at this target, but also starting a switch to the weak light squares. Which is funny because earlier the pawns were blocking the bishops on the light squares. And, you know, we wanted to defend some dark squares against the queen. But now that the pawns have assumed this shape, he actually starts to look at the light squares. He's eyeing that rook for tactics, that rook for tactics, and g7, and another sneaky idea. So rook came here, and he just played queen g6. And Arageisi resigned immediately. Why? The bishop's just going to come back here. There's no longer any way to cover this incursion at h7. The queen is defending that square from the enemy queen. That's why it has to be this move order of queen here first. And now, I mean, you know, this was our whole idea, but that's what white wants now. It's too late to do anything. You know, if the rook comes up, white could not only take it for free, but you have to remember the rook's defending the 8th rank, right? This is just a checkmate. If you try and defend with this rook, well, you can't even. White just takes. You know, you can't challenge any white pieces here. The activity is just overwhelming. The pieces doubled on the e file, all synced up and defending each other. And he just resigned. I mean, it's really, I think it's basically going to be mate. He'll have to sack his queen for a bishop. And then, yeah. So that was a smash. That was the most smashed Arjun has been in a long time by anybody. I'm a big fan of his, so, you know, I mean, in a sense, I could be dismayed, but I'm just trying to show you that this tournament is exciting. It's exciting. You can get a top 5 player getting smashed, checkmated in 20-some moves by a 2600 that some of you may not have heard of, Nicholas Theodorou. And some of you will have heard of him. I'm not trying to say he's an unknown, but to many people, he won't be a household name like the top 10 players, right? So that's excitement, I think, this kind of a tournament. And today we're going to probably watch Theodorou playing black against another famous player, Hans Moke Niemann. So that's what's coming up for you all in an hour. I will be back then.